All right, everybody, welcome out to the Lager Room. It is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. As if I had to tell you again that it's 2020. Jersey Johnny coming at you, and with me, as always, is Mr. Beer Samurai. Say hello, Mr. Samurai.
Hey, guys. Happy National Pastry Day.
Happy National Pastry Day. It is.
One would think we'd be going pastry stouts off of that, but we're not going to.
It is National Pastry Day. Look at that. And for National Pastry Day, not that this is one thing has anything to do with the other, but we have with us today Mr. Matt Potenski, beer brewer and mead maker extraordinaire, as he was billed.
Extraordinaire. As billed.
As billed. Well, billed on the...
slight embellishment, but I do work with a extraordinaire at least. So. He makes me look really good. So
yeah, but does the mead maker and the beer brewer, do they do both? Does the beer brewer you work with make mead, and does the mead maker you work with brew beer? Well,
Sergio used to brew beer.
Oh, did
he? If I remember, in his tour, he gave this speech and he would talk about how awful he was at making beer.
I wouldn't say he was completely awful, but I mean he never did wowed me. So.
Those were his words.
He started bringing meads to the homebrew club, and then it was like we all just hated him because we were like, "Dude, just make one mediocre so that we feel better about ourselves." But
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, working with Sergio has been a really cool thing, and it's awesome to see translating some of the beer recipes to the mead world. So
absolutely.
And if you guys want to know who Sergio is, just read Matt's shirt.
Melovino.
Something tells me there'll be something from there popping into this podcast a little bit later.
Make me so jealous.
Imagine that. Well, Brian wishes us a happy National Pastry Day.
Nice.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
How's it going?
I was just trying to figure out, Matt, have we drank together more at Cloverleaf or at Brian's?
That's probably a toss-up.
That's probably a toss-up, yeah.
It could be a toss-up.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we open beers? Speaking of National Pastry Day, it is also tomorrow is National Lager Day.
Oh, yes.
That's tomorrow. We would say it's tomorrow, but we're on a Wednesday, not on Thursday. And this is the Lager Room. So why don't we start off with some lagers?
Yeah, we get made fun of all the time that we don't drink enough lagers on the show.
We did a couple weeks ago. We did anyway.
We did.
So why don't you, Dave? Why don't you start us off?
All right, we're going to go, and I've got a classic lager glass right here.
Classic lager glass. What are you drinking? You could be telling us.
I could be telling you, right? I'm just enjoying the sound of the can opening.
There you go.
We're going with a Shades On Schwartz beer, and every time you say Shades On, you got to go.
Shades on. You got to put them on, right? Exactly.
Put the shades on.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, it looks like a Schwartz beer.
It does definitely look like a Schwartz beer.
These guys do some really good German styles down there. They always have food trucks around. And
do they have German food too, or no?
To not be in New Jersey.
I know, right? Actually, they're doing a pierogi sale.
Is that right?
I forget the name of the pierogi company, but they're going to be doing pierogi sales there through December 12th, I believe.
I'll be getting my car after this is over, so I'll be right there.
Yeah, that's a classic.
That's really good.
Yeah, you got the roast. The hops aren't interfering with the roast. Schwartz beer, Lagerfest 2020. May the Schwartz be with you.
Very nice. Matt, what are you drinking?
I am going for the Paulaner Salvatore, which is a Doppelbock. So I basically wanted to pick one of the least lagery types of lagers that there is. A strong,
least lagery type of lager.
Yeah.
That's
a strong German lager that's made with a decoction mash. So basically they take some of the wort as they're doing the mash and boil it and then put it back in to step the mash temperature up.
Oh, nice.
And what you do is you get a lot of what are called Maillard reactions, which basically gives it like a nice caramel kind of, burnt sugar kind of note. So
very nice.
Still has that nice clean, crisp finish, but
it's that same reaction that turns bread into toast.
I would think so. I bet, yeah. But we,
yeah.
It
has nothing to do with ducks.
No, it's Maillard, not Mallard.
Maillard, yeah.
Maillard.
All right. Well, for myself, I'll be enjoying released a couple weeks ago, week of Thanksgiving actually. Source released Kultzbach. It's a traditional Bock,
Nice.
7%. There we go.
So I've got the wimpy beer, huh?
You've got the wimpy beer. Now this thing's pouring
This is not wimpy in flavor, though.
deep amber. It's really nice. But I'm pouring it in my. I'm pouring in my Source Brewing IPA glass. So,
You drinking out of a wine glass, Matt?
Nope.
Teku.
That's a Teku.
I've never seen that style of beer drank out of a Teku. Now I have.
Now you have.
Love it.
I mean, to be fair, Teku just kind of concentrates all the aroma, so it's so nice to get that nice big caramel bready aroma.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because most people look at Tekus and think they're IPA glasses. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
That's really nice. Kudos to Jeremy and Greg. That's very nice. And Phil.
And Phil.
All of them.
He might have something.
The whole crew. Everybody over in Colts Neck. Anyway, so, how's everybody's week so far?
Can't complain. I'm finishing my quarantine.
Where'd you come from? Is this travel quarantine?
No, I saw my brother-in-law on Thanksgiving, and then he tested positive after that. So luckily, I've gotten tested and I'm negative. But
very good.
We were going to do the full 14-day quarantine just to be sure.
Well, we're glad to hear you're okay.
That's absolutely the most important part. A couple things here. A couple comments just came in. Brian says Sergio is a New Jersey treasure.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I would not argue that at all.
And he also said, finally, join drinking a Source beer. I think he meant John. So, finally, John drinking a Source beer. That would be my guess is what he meant by that. Brian,
I'm just checking. I'm trying to check to see how close the H is to the I here. And
it's not, well, it's close enough, but
spell check?
Could have been spell check, yeah. He's probably on his phone.
Because John's not a common word.
No, not at all.
John, I've had a couple Source beers with you, I believe.
Yes, you have.
Or even knocked one
while watching football.
While watching football, and yes. So, more to talk about football in about an hour and a half. So, on the other show, and Dave Campanella actually says if you want some great lagers and German styles, hit Chilton Mill in Long Valley, New Jersey.
Cool.
So, have you guys been to Chilton Mill yet?
Yeah, they make some interesting sours.
Yeah, I have not been. I'm up there not often, obviously not during this anyway, but there's family that's up there. Yes, Brian did say yes, John. No clue why it came out join. So there you go.
Brian firing on all cylinders as you
absolutely, yeah.
He's trying to get back his number one fan.
He wants to get his top fan designation back on the on the page.
Well, I demoted him a few days ago.
Yes, you did. So anyway, this lager is delicious. That's a lager, of course. This Bock is delicious. Very good, very good. Why don't we, Dave? Why don't we ask Matt some questions while we're enjoying our Bocks and Schwartz beers, and actually we're all drinking German style beers, so why not?
Yeah, let's take them to task.
All right.
Except Matt's the only one drinking a German style beer from Germany.
Yes, this is true.
You've got one from Jersey. I got one from Rhode Island. Imagine that.
So we're covered. Germany, New Jersey, and Rhode Island are all covered. There you go. All right.
Now Matt,
let's start them off with.
Let's grill them a little bit.
Let's start them off with this one. All right, you brew beer, and you make mead. And by the way, is that correct? It's make mead maker, not brewer or fermenter.
Well, so again, you don't. I mean, to be fair, I can talk a little bit about the mead that we made with the gingerbread spice. That is actually brewed. That one is brewed.
Okay.
So we do make beer style meads.
Style meads. So you technically do brew.
Are actually brewed. Actually, it's funny. It's almost like making an extract batch of beer. Okay. Because instead of the malt extract, you're just dumping, honey in. There's no malt in it, obviously.
Sure.
It's a session mead, but we do actually go through a full boil and everything like that. So there's no mashing. There's no grain. You just basically go straight to the boil and do a normal boil.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's great to learn. What are All right. Obviously, you just explained that, but are there any other differences between the techniques? It's pretty much the same straight up,
So,
more or
I
less,
mean,
except for
if you're,
ingredients and.
if you're making traditional meads, I mean,
Right.
the techniques are more like wine making.
Sure.
And there's what happens is honey is very nutrient deficient.
Mhm.
When you have grain, you have a lot of nitrogen, phosphorus, other elements in there. Honey is like sugar and a very, very, very small amount of water.
Right.
So basically, it's not a lot of nutrients. So you do need to kind of add nutrients at certain points and kind of baby the or push the fermentation along. Beer, you kind of throw the yeast in, and as long as you have some oxygen in there, boom, everything's gonna kind of happen.
Mhm.
And mead is a little bit more complex actually. So you do need to actually mix the tanks up, degas it to let off some of the carbon dioxide, and then add nutrients to keep that fermentation going in a healthy way. Otherwise, you'll get off flavors. And one of the big things is if you've ever had not so great mead, you get a lot of fusel alcohols out of it.
Okay.
It's kind of like jet fuel. So it's real easy to get that jet fuel if you don't have a healthy fermentation. So
It's that one like Bunroddy, I think, is
mhm,
Bunroddy or Dunroddy, one of those. Yeah, it's got that fuel kind of flavor to it.
mhm.
Gotcha.
So-
What's your what do you like? What do you prefer? You prefer brewing, or you prefer brewing beer, or brewing?
I mean, I prefer brewing just because I'm a lot more well versed in it, and it's interesting to me. Like the more I work with Sergio and see some of the things he does, it just kind of amazes me because I can make a beer recipe. I can taste a new malt and say, oh, you know what? I'd love to put 10% of this in this type of beer recipe, or blah blah blah. He does that with different honeys. It's like this is like voodoo magic kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
He tastes the honey and he's just like, ooh, I'm going to put 10% of that in this recipe and it's going to like kick it up a notch. And it's just like, it really blows your mind. Like, just how next level, he is as a mead maker. I mean, he is the president of the American Mead Makers Association. So it's,
Sure.
He's there for a reason because he it's been cool because I've got to see, not only him, from a home brewer. We were in the same homebrew club for a few years before we even opened Melavino, and then see him making recipes, refining recipes, and then taking like a beer recipe of mine and then translating that from a beer to a mead. Mm-hmm. So working shoulder to shoulder with him to do that. That was a really cool process for me. Learning how thinking about flavor and saying how do we recreate that flavor profile, how do we do this, how do we do that, and watching him kind of diversify. He really is kind of in the forefront of these beer style session meads. Mm-hmm. He's been doing a lot of them, and it's kind of blowing people in the mead world's mind a bit because I've had a Kolsch style mead from him that tastes exactly like a Kolsch.
That's great.
I mean, it's if I didn't tell you it was mead, there's no way. Now, luckily, that's a lighter style, so it doesn't have a huge malt profile. Obviously, right. You can't really do like a stout mead as well or something like that. But he got a fresh pitch of Kolsch yeast from Twin Elephant, and did a batch of Kolsch mead, and man, it was just killer. How light and just had that nice Kolsch flavor in the finish.
You gotta wonder Sergio sitting there going, a stout mead.
Now he's thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
wheels are turning. You can
Don't be surprised in a year.
He's tried to do some of the darker. We can get like a dark brown. What it is to make a darker style. Even for this gingerbread spiced, it's a gingerbread spiced Belgian double style mead is what we made.
It's Belgian style from you.
Yeah, surprise. But I mean, I'll tell you the story about it real quick. So it's based on the first commercial beer I ever made with Cypress. So I years ago came up with a recipe for kind of my holiday beer, and instead of doing the traditional like English style winter warmer, I know Belgians have a long history of also doing Noel beers that are spiced or things like that. So I said I want to come up with something that's to me very holiday, but still has a Belgian base. And I was thinking of doing a double, and I came the epiphany was gingerbread spice. Like when you smell gingerbread spice, that's your house when you're baking cookies for the holidays.
Right. Sure.
You know what I mean? So, And the more I thought about it, I figured the gingerbread profile would actually work really well with like the lightly sweet kind of Belgian double base. So I make a recipe. We did it at Cypress, I don't know, 5 years ago now, almost 6
Sounds
years.
about right.
Was that either naughty or nice?
That was the original nice.
The original nice.
The original
nice is now a 13% ginger imperial stout. So they've changed it a little bit.
A little different, yeah.
Yeah, a little different. But that was
a different kind of nice.
Yeah, that was the original nice. And I took that to Sergio once he started doing the beer meads. I said, hey, we should do this recipe as a mead for the holiday season, and you have a gingerbread spiced mead. And he's like, yeah, that sounds really cool. So we what it is, the base of it is what we call a bochet. So it's basically you caramelize the honey, you cook the honey down, and that way you get kind of like a darker color, and you get a little bit of a richer, bit caramelized. I mean, in a sense, you could probably do a great like box style mead if you did it, because you are literally caramelizing the honey.
That's great. And the bochet. Didn't we have a
bochet?
Didn't we have that a few weeks ago?
Oh yeah. So I bought the Best Friends Forever, which was basically a mixed berry bochet aged in bourbon barrel.
That was nice.
And then I brought that to the house. So that was delicious. That's one of the richer meats that he's made. But yeah, so it's basically what we do is we make it almost like we cook the honey down. We add water. We put hops in it. At the appropriate time, like at 60 minutes when you start your boil, when it just starts to boil.
Mm-hmm.
We put candied ginger, some spices, and dark Belgian candy sugar in there, and then it is fermented with a, Belgian Abbey yeast. So you do get, it's interesting, you do get a little bit of the esters in there too, which is really nice. So this is the third year we did the mead, and I think this was easily the best one that we've done. We've made some incremental changes to it over the last 2 years, and I think this is the year that we came pretty close to like getting it to that perfect point. So
nice. What do you like drinking better, beer or mead?
I mean, I'm a beer guy, and if it's an average day of the week, I like, I'll crack a beer, but I like mead as a nice change of pace.
Right.
And there are, mead can be a little bit richer, but there's all kinds of flavors with mead too. Like unlike grape wine, we have meads with coffee in them and things like that. So there's still a lot of flavorings that are very similar to what craft beer drinkers would recognize in an instant, but played with the honey base. And if you've never had honey and coffee, it's actually an amazing combination. Like,
really?
Yeah. I the first time I thought, I was like, coffee mead. I'm like, and I tried it. I'm like, nope, completely wrong. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
It's one of my favorite styles in it.
Did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I'm sitting here thinking I'm a little you guys have these big ABV beers, so I need to catch up a little bit. And I warned you I would have a second lager sitting around just in case.
You're just going to open up a second lager.
I'm just opening up a second. I'm going to open up a Sam Adams winter lager. Because I'm up here.
Which is which is a Bock this year. It's or most years it's a Bock. A couple of years it's not, but once in a while it's not.
No, this year it's a Bock. This year it's a Bock. So I got to feel that I must catch up here.
Well, the actually the kind of funny, ironic thing is that we actually did a version of my Belgian double at Cypress again on the big systems just in the past month. So that's the first time we've ever done the Belgian double on the big system.
Very nice.
So really?
We have it's called Make It a Double.
Make It a Double.
Nice.
And then this is kind of a light recipe. It's kind of a lighter style double. It's not really dark brown. Because again, this is more of the base that we usually put the ginger and that kind of stuff in. But we did then basically do a version with cherries and cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg.
I'm loving their new logo.
Yeah.
So, this is I reached back there because there's the old one.
Oh yeah, there's the original logo.
That's the original. That's one of the original glasses.
Yeah. But
it's got the green bottom, right?
The one with the cherries is really awesome.
It's cherries, cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice.
And allspice. Yeah. So it's like holiday spices and cherries. So it's I want to say it's kind of like Mad Elf's like little baby brother.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Mad Elf's baby brother.
But not going to blow your head off if you light a match.
Nice.
Well, you can actually drink one of these and then stand up, without getting a little dizzy. That's always good.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we move on to some brewery news while we're finishing our beers? And Dave, folks, if you haven't figured it out already, Dave drinks faster than most people. So
Usually.
Which is why he usually has a second beer of the same style sitting around. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to some brewery news. There we go. Just happened yesterday. Matt, I've had this conversation with Dave already. You're familiar with Hop Culture, that online magazine?
Yeah.
They do some events. They just sold.
Okay.
They just sold. They just sold to what's it? I'm sorry. My mind's lost here. Oh, the Next Glass. The company that owns Beer Advocate and Untapped. They have purchased Beer Advocate and Untapped, and there's that online purchase thing too. What is it?
Not Devore.
No, the other one. It's
There's like Craft Shack. There's
not.
It's OZNR. Osner. OZNR. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm not sure, but there we go. Yeah, it's a craft beverage marketplace. So they own 4 things now. They own Osner. They own Untapped, Beer Advocate. Now they just bought Hop Culture yesterday. They just, I guess it was a done deal yesterday. There's a long article on Hop Culture from the owner, saying why he sold. What's his name? Kenny Gould. So if you're interested, he basically, what I took from it is he's just, they're not, anybody that works for Hop Culture is not going anywhere. He's the CEO. Everybody's staying in place. He's just got Next Glass money behind him, so he can, increase the business and everything else.
So John, are we for sale?
Hey, you know what? If Next Glass wants to throw some money at us, sure.
We'll catch.
As long as we can keep drinking and talking every Wednesday night, I'm fine with that.
Yep, drinking and talking with our friends.
So So what do you think about? I mean, this isn't like AB InBev money or any of these other venture capital firms, investing in craft beer things. This is actually like a software company. I think Next Glass is. They develop a lot of back-end database type things and advance everything else. And obviously they got some money behind them. So, they bought into Beer Advocate and Untapped. And I mean, since they put money in Untapped, Untapped just took off. Not so much, obviously, the app. The app's different. They made changes and everything else. But as far as all of their, menus, you see the digital menus in like so many locations. And the money's just, they seem to be doing it right, is my point. So, thoughts on that? Anybody? Bueller?
Well, you're not going to have. It's obviously when Untapped sold, there was not the outrage for them when like Goose Island sold, right?
No, it's
apples and oranges. Apple completely different
Untapped
thing.
And Gooses.
And you know what? How many people would have even noticed? Mm-hmm. Of course, you notice. You're tied into all these, all the Facebook groups, all the news feeds.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank you for that.
I try.
But the does it make a difference who owns them?
No, I don't really think it does. I mean, I believe, and I could be wrong because I haven't heard anything in a while, but I still think the founders of Untapped are somewhat involved, and I'm pretty sure that we know the owners of Beer Advocate are still involved.
Alstroms are still involved.
Alstroms are still involved. So I don't think Next Glass is coming in and taking over. I think they're just basically investing. And then obviously they own a certain percentage of it. I'm sure. I don't know all the details on all of those purchases, but that's what it seems to me. So, but
yeah, I mean, I think the main thing would be as long as the platforms are pretty much familiar and the usability is kind of similar to where they were at,
or even gets better.
I mean, Untapped, I think they added some features, so it's like you didn't change anything that I was already doing, but then you improved it so it actually is even more useful.
Sure.
Then I'm all about it. If you started to like change a bunch of stuff and then I was like, wait a minute, I wanted to do this and now I can't do that, and that's when you're probably going to get the outrage.
Or all of a sudden there's advertising all over the apps and you can't even make head or hair.
I can't check in a beer without having two ads go across or stuff like, if there was a lot of stuff like that, then maybe, we'd have a different conversation here. But
right, that's not really the model that they're going after anyway.
I think I haven't used Beer Advocate that much, but I think the general functionality of Beer Advocate hasn't changed.
Pretty much very similar to it.
Yeah, it's still very similar.
So it's as long as you're not going to offend your user base, add more features. That's great because everyone loves that. But as long as you're not changing what they're basically doing with it, I think you'll be successful.
Well, it goes in line with even the beer takeovers. If you've got a brewery that the beers weren't really changed, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm.
Which now I am speaking exactly against and diametrically opposed to what I usually say about that. Whereas, what the big difference is, and it's not the problem here, the big difference with the breweries is where the money's going and what those people do with that money. Right? Because we've seen many instances of AB InBev just using their money to buy lawyers to just shut down small guys and sue them and just take them out of the market. These guys aren't doing that, so obviously
it's not even
close.
Not even a conversation. It's completely different. Hey, you know what? It's just a company that really gets behind the craft community and wants to further certain aspects of it and has money and wants to get involved and they're dumping some money into things and making it better.
There's your key. There's the key difference right there.
Anyway.
But that's your key difference right there. It's somebody that's in the craft community who wants to support the craft community.
Sure.
Not fight it.
If I had the financial capital behind me, I'd do the same damn thing. So,
Well, maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't buy so much beer
or jerseys. Yeah.
or jerseys. Yeah, there's your biggest.
Well, there you go. On another note, really quick, in the brewery news realm, if you will, Goose Island's Philly location gone, shut down. Thing of the past.
I just saw that.
Yeah, just their second home in Philly, in the Fishtown region, right across from the Fillmore.
Oh, what a neat place!
It was a great location, and the beers that they put up. I mean, some rare stuff that they had sitting around for years, and some small batch stuff that they brewed right there. Really good stuff, and the food was phenomenal too. To be quite honest with you, but yeah, just citing the impact of COVID-19, they're just done. They're closed up shop. Goodbye. See,
right.
We're just focus on Chicago. And they have AB InBev money behind them, and they closed up.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I had to put my righteous indignation aside when I went there because the place was cool. I mean, of course, so that I wasn't a complete hypocrite. I did only drink stuff they had on that was pre-AB InBev purchase. But it was a really neat place. It was a great place to pregame a concert at the Fillmore, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, a lot of these beers, and from what I've been told over the years, and from what I've been led to believe, I should say, over the years, AB InBev really doesn't have any say in the Bourbon County. Maybe they have a say in as far as the distribution and the amount that they're brewing and everything else, but as far as the actual brewing of the beer, that's still Goose Island. That's still them in Chicago. They're still brewing that beer, and all the girls too. Sophie,
Matilda,
Halia, all of them.
Hortense.
Wild ales.
Hortense? No, there's no Hortense.
No, there's a Hortense. Maybe there should be. Maybe Cypress will brew a Hortense. Brew spontaneous.
Talk to Charlie. Get him to
fermented barrel aged wild ale.
It's not a 20% stout. Charlie doesn't want 5 adjunct, 200 IBU.
Well, if you think about it, when you say the word Hortense, you kind of picture a large woman.
There you go.
So a big imperial stout.
It could be a big imperial stout. There you go. Barrel aged for 16 years.
Yep. Oh boy.
I might have.
I mean, it's everything I've heard with, in terms of Bourbon County and stuff is that it was almost like Goose Island got a rich uncle all of a sudden. And the uncle was like, let me buy you a bunch of barrels. Let's put this beer out in a bunch of places, like yada, yada, yada. And so it's like they still got to do what they wanted to do in terms of how they made the beer, but they just had to make a ton more of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
Rather than adding weird stuff like Earl Grey tea, which we won't talk about. I'm all about lots of Bourbon County, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple of interesting variants this year that they came out with.
To be fair, I haven't drank any of it yet. I have the oatmeal, which I'm pretty excited about. It's the oatmeal maple.
Oh yeah, the maple. Yeah.
Yeah, that one sounded good. The Earl Grey tea one. No,
not that one. And then
I've had Earl Grey tea in a number of beers, and I've liked exactly 0 of them.
The caramel apple one, I have a bottle of that one too.
That one didn't.
I'm cautiously optimistic about that one.
If you like caramel apple, it could be good.
You know what? If it's really appley with the caramel, I'm not too keen on that. But with the barrel aging, and if it's just a hint of apple and the caramel in there, it should be all right.
My opinion is they should just go back to doing the coffee, and just do the coffee like as well as they used to do the coffee. Because I had a 2014 coffee about 3 months ago. Still one of the best coffee bourbon barrel aged stouts I think I've had in a long time. It was just so good. It's so bourbon, so coffee, and it's just like, man, just do it really well, and you don't need 10 ingredients in it.
No, the barley wines were really good too. They used to do.
Yeah,
they were good. In fact, I got to tell you that the one of my favorite variants that they've done over the last couple of years, a few years, I think it was. I don't think they did it last year. They might have. They definitely did it 2 years ago. Was the wheat wine they did?
Wheat wine.
That was really good.
I was going to say the wheat wine was surprising because as a style, I don't really like it in general.
With you. Yeah.
Because by definition, the wheat really softens what should be a big, like, impactful beer.
Sure.
By putting all the wheat in it, you're softening and taking the edge out of it. But I have to say that probably one of the best wheat wines I've ever had was that.
Definitely,
Not last year's, but the one from 2 years.
2 years ago, 2018.
I wish I had that so I could compare it to Schlafly's. Schlafly made a really nice one.
Yeah, I'm sure it's still out there. I'm sure you can find it.
In fact, I think I actually found one in my cellar downstairs. But
I was going to say I'm about to crack something else.
Behind like what, 4 cans of IPA.
No.
Without further ado,
you got it.
There you go. You got to crack it. You're going to make us all jealous.
500 ml.
Oh, there he is, right there. He's cracking a 16.9 ounce bottle of gingerbread cookie mead that he made. Make us all jealous.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
So first of all,
look at the color of that as a mead.
But does that not look? I mean, I'm just reflecting the whole screen. But does that
you can see John and I in that.
Does that not look like a Belgian double?
I got to take a screenshot of that. Hold that up a little closer.
It's also a Melavino glass, proper glassware. But
there you
go. But I mean, does that not look just like a Belgian double?
It definitely looks like a double.
That's perfect.
Absolutely looks like a double.
And we even have some
head retention,
and things like that.
Not getting Belgian lace off of it, but.
Yeah, you get a little bit.
A little bit?
Not a ton, but there's some legs there.
Very nice. Very nice.
The nose on this is just fantastic, though. It's like you just walked into the kitchen while your mom is baking cookies. It's amazing.
My mom was an awful baker and cook.
Okay, so maybe not burnt cookies, but
that might have been the smell you would get while she was making spaghetti.
You came over to my house. There you go.
There you go. Your house.
But,
so it's 6.9%. It's a draft mead. It is carbonated. And it's shelf stable in the bottle. So it's pretty cool.
Very nice.
You're sitting here talking about Melavino and making me miss New Jersey amazingly.
I'm going to have to figure out a way to have some of that.
Yeah, I got to figure that out.
You both know a guy, I'll tell you that.
Well, we'll have to make that work. Well, I'm going to open up my second beer. I'm going to be enjoying Corson Donk's Christmas Ale.
There you go.
Now tell them why you decided to go with a Belgian.
Look at the screen underneath you and I.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Belgium
himself
right there.
Mr. Belgium himself right there. That's your middle name, right? Matt Belgium Potenski.
Belgium. Yeah.
There you go. This is one of my favorite winter warmers for the holidays. This and St. Bernardus, and St. Bernardus and Nichouf. Those are my three favorite Belgian winter warmers.
And you know, I went
Belgian English style winter warmers.
I went looking for St. Bernardus and couldn't find it.
I know you went looking for St.
Really?
Bernardus. And I was going to get St. Bernardus, but I know you wanted to have St. Bernardus because you like St. Bernardus better than Corsendonk, and I like them both. So I didn't buy St. Bernardus because you were going to have St. Bernardus.
Yeah. No, I couldn't find it, so I had to go quasi-local.
Quasi-local. Well, quasi-local to you.
Quasi-local to me.
More quasi-local to you, actually.
I had to go one state over and go with the only Trappist brewery in the United States.
You got the Spencer. Yes.
You mean that's right here?
Yes.
Yes,
so that has ginger in it.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Ginger, cloves, allspice.
Yeah. I love that beer, actually. That beer is fantastic.
And people don't get it. It's got such a low rating on Untapped.
It's crazy. The ratings that beer gets.
Well, I mean, that's, to me, the problem is this. The problem is that in this kind of climate of craft beer, everyone wants to be sledgehammered over the head with stuff.
Right.
They want the most coconut beer that you've ever tasted,
right.
or the most chocolate vanilla coconut beer that you ever tasted. They want to just be bludgeoned with flavor.
But this is America.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean that's not the Belgian brewing tradition. It's the Belgian brewing tradition is about being subtle and adding lots of layers of depth. And in that beer, you can actually pull the ginger out. But in a lot of Belgian beers, there's just enough flavor so you know that something's there. But a lot of times you can't pin it down and actually put your finger on it.
Right.
And because you were on the show, I pulled out I don't know if you can see it. I pulled out the clover leaf.
Nice. I mean, I did a Belgian blonde once with mint. And that sounds extraordinarily weird on the surface of it, but you have to think of it this way. I brewed it as a light beer for the summer. I was thinking mint julep or some kind of summery kind of, mojito, something where, and the thing is, I didn't make a mint beer. I made a Belgian blonde, and it had just enough mint in it that you were like, there's something going on there, and I don't know what it is. And until I told people that it was mint, no one
figured it out. No, it was weird. It's ironic, too, because I did a Belgian blonde once, too, but she didn't bring any mint with her.
But, I mean, that's...
You're going to get in trouble for that one.
Whatever.
To me, if I put enough mint in it that you could just say it was mint, I put too much in. And that's right. Kind of the point of Belgian brewing,
right.
You're walking that fine knife edge of... They want to have a quote-unquote gastronomic ale. That's the way they describe their beer. And that's why you add the candy sugars, so that you put the ABV up without making it heavy and, harder to drink.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
Belgian beer is all about, having with food.
I'll tell you right now, of all the Spencers I've had, this is the most Belgian of all of them.
Yeah.
Despite being, the holiday ale and having those holiday spices, and you're right. The ginger's there. It doesn't punch in the face. It's not gonna burn your tonsils.
Sure.
Damn, I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. And
that's a lovely beer.
Corsendonk's a good beer too.
Oh yeah,
this one's pretty tasty. Pretty tasty, and I'm drinking it. I'm enjoying it in my. I don't know if you could see the etching there.
The Dogfish Head.
It's my Dogfish Head glass.
Do you guys remember the glass that they made where they had etched Dogfish Head in the bottom?
In the bottom.
And if you had poured a beer with a thick enough, the right thickness of head, if it was too thick, it covered it.
Right.
If you had the right thickness, the logo would appear in the head.
It would appear in the head, right? Exactly. And you always got you always got the CO2 would always the bubbles would always come off right off the etching, which is what brought it up to the head.
That was how it did it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I'm drinking out of that, and I figured I'd wear my Dogfish Head cap today too.
Is this a way of saying we need to move on to the threes?
I'm segueing. Well, I'm not going to the threes yet. We want to chatter about what we were.
Oh yes. Now we want to thank Brian for this topic.
Yes,
because Brian brought it up in our
hats off
talk
to
about everything group.
Hats off to Brian Altschul. He brought it up in our Talk Everything group. It was.
I don't know if my phone. It's probably going to be super bright, but that is definitely me standing just outside of the. This is a Dogfish Head.
There you go. There you go. That's you. There you go.
Is that Milton?
Right.
Yep, that's in Milton. That's at the brewery. So.
All right. Never mind. I was going to pull.
People who know me know I have a certain predilection to like sharks in general.
Well, there you go.
Jeez, how have you really?
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
So people,
Carl's spent youth as a marine biologist, but
if you're gonna let me toot your horn for a second.
That has a shark as a logo. I was like, sign me up. I'm so there.
Nice.
You got to let me toot your horn here for a second. People that don't know Matt, what he's referring to is he is a fantastic underwater photographer and above the water photographer as well.
Sure.
He has taken some of my one of my favorite photos I've ever seen of a whale shark, which is one of my favorite animals on the planet. I think I reference you every National Whale Shark Day, right? World Whale Shark. Was it the Mako shark that appeared on Shark Week
this year? Yeah.
Yeah, this year. And you've been up for numerous awards for your photography. That mangrove one is just that stark. Is the contrast in that is, it's almost an upsetting photo, right?
That mangrove,
especially knowing that mangrove tree was gone the next day, right?
To me, it's a very upsetting photo. I mean, that's an island that I lived on in the Bahamas, and we fought development there for a number of years, and mainly lost a lot of the fight there, and they developed on 2/3 of the island.
That sucks.
Yeah. Guys,
it's unfortunate, but now it's a cautionary tale. It's so this happened here. Let's not make, let's not have this repeat and happen again here and here and here.
That was the point of the picture, right?
Yeah,
that was absolutely.
And guys, Matt has lived the life you all wanted to live, and ladies, I think he's still single.
Are you pimping him out? Is that what you're trying to do?
Pimp the boy out.
There you go. Anyway,
I want to cut.
Brian just wrote in. We're thanking him. We didn't even get to the point yet with Brian. Why we were thanking him, but because we were thanking him, he wrote in. But he's still somehow not a top fan.
No, you still got some work to do, buddy.
Well, we want to thank Brian because he did bring to our attention the other day in a craft beer group. On Facebook, a specific one. I'm actually not on it. I wasn't able to access it, but he did bring it to our attention. There was a post, and the post was, and I'm going to be specific about it. The post was, just curious, what was the last Dogfish Head beer that wowed you? Now, I don't know whether the original poster was trying to mock or not, or just asking, or just curious for their own informational purposes, but probably he said about 2/3 of the posts, and there were many. There was over 200. He said about 2/3 of the posts were supportive of Dogfish Head and what they liked about it and everything else. But there was about a third in there that was bashing Dogfish Head. Things along the responses of not liking the beer. The beer is overrated. They're sellouts because they got in bed with Sam Adams. I have a few things to say about that. I'll say my piece really quick, and then I'd like to hear both of yours. As far as the sellout thing, I'm sorry. I'm not Jim Cook of Sam Adams. I respect that man for the things he's done directly and indirectly for the craft beer community. There's so many things that would not have happened, or at least not as fast or at all maybe that did if it wasn't for him. And there are very many Sam Adams beers that are phenomenal. We're not just talking about Boston Lager here. And to be quite honest with you, if you drink the right Boston Lager, it's pretty damn good too.
With the right food at the right time.
With the right food at the right time, absolutely. So, but in any event,
and this does not suck.
And no, winter lager does not suck. And the best Boston Lager I ever had was actually at the brewery in Boston. All the Boston Lager brewed at that brewery is just for Boston, actually. In fact, Western Massachusetts Boston Lager comes from Pennsylvania. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't agree with. I don't get into a Sam Adams conversation here. This is a Dogfish Head chat, but yeah, I don't agree with the sellout thing at all. That's complete. I'll say it's complete horseshit. They did not sell out. They just expanded. They got two friends, got together, and went into business together. That's basically what happened there. And then, the beer isn't great, overrated. No, I'm sorry. You're either A, drinking the wrong beer for your palate, or B, you're just somebody that only wants to drink the next local super hazy New England IPA and nothing else. you know, I'm sorry if I'm bashing anybody. I'm not trying to. Everybody's style is their own, but you got to feel that same way too. Everybody's style is their own. Don't bash a beer because you don't appreciate it. You may not say you don't. You can say you don't like it, and that's absolutely perfectly fine. But don't bash it. So, thoughts from you guys?
I'm going to let Matt go first because I'm going to go off.
Well, okay, good. I mean, I have a couple things, that I'd like to cover. One is, for people who don't really understand the way craft beer works, is that for over a decade, the actual definition of craft beer was reviewed and changed every year based on the number of barrels that Sam Adams made. Because they were like, however many barrels they made more this year. Okay, it's that and below is still craft beer because
because they were a microbrewery, but when they came out of microbrewery, the term craft beer was invented. To include Sam Adams into it.
Yeah, because they basically wanted to still keep them in the fold, and there are a huge business at this point. In some ways very similar more to some of the macro beers than, but at the same time. Jim still does a lot of they do a lot of programs to actual funnel money into smaller microbreweries. They do a lot of micro loans. He basically supports the craft beer community in numerous ways, and a lot of them in very important, what I think, business ways, because the thing is, there's a lot of people who can make good beer, and just because you can make good beer doesn't mean that you'll be successful as a craft beer brewery, because that's a business. And it's taking that, making beer and figuring out how to do business are two separate skill sets. And so he does a lot of things with educating people on how to say, okay, you're making decent beer. Now, how do you actually, make this a thing and live on what you're making and so on?
Sure.
And, in terms of, Dogfish being overrated or something like that. People don't have to understand that, Sam did a lot of things that, a lot of the brewers that are now doing crazy things today, they wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Sam. Yeah. He's one of the guys that started doing crazy things. And even to talk about people like your guest last week, Augie, Augie, I think in many ways, 2 weeks ago, is Augie's an extension of Sam. If it wasn't for people like Sam, maybe Augie isn't doing the things that he's doing. And it's, people don't have to understand that, yes, okay, now putting like citrus and something else in a goza is not, citrus and coriander in a goza is not revolutionary anymore. But, doing some of the crazy beers he did, talking like 20 years ago at this point,
sure,
was really crazy at that point, because it's people were buying Budweiser and things like that. Like, you barely had much craft beer in the market anywhere. So it's all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to put, a cherry something beer. And people would probably look at you like you had three heads, and he still did it. So, I give him a lot of credit for that. I mean, the continuous hopping technique for 60-minute, 90-minute things like that, those are techniques that he kind of really took and ran with. So there's a lot to be said for that. I'm interested to see, I think they make solid beers. I like their beers. I drink their beers. I have no problem with it. It's, to me, it's for more than anything, honestly, it's a distribution network deal. It's so that they can both expand their distribution networks in a right way. And, that's the problem, is what a lot of people who don't know how the craft beer industry works is there's a lot of things that big beer does to basically paint, liquor stores and things into a corner and say, look, we're, there's a lot of tough guy, kind of distribution tactics. And I hate to say it, but a lot more craft beer is probably, if you're just selling beer out of a tap room locally, that's fine. But once you get into the distribution game, to me, it was a way that they can compete with some of these bigger players and not get completely just pushed around.
The distribution part is ridiculous. It's difficult to get beer into a place that you don't already have beer in.
Yeah, and it sucks, but it's so to me it's an evolution. It's them changing with the times to figure out how to still be competitive and still move product. And I haven't tried it yet, but sitting in my fridge is a worldwide stout aged in Utopias barrels, and I am pretty excited. I am pretty excited for that.
You really. I just want to point this out. I don't know if you read the article on that particular beer, but you really shouldn't drink 12 ounces of that beer yourself.
I don't.
Yeah, no, you should share with at least a couple of friends.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if that's the type of stuff that's going to come out of this partnership, I'm on board. So.
Wow, exactly. And Brian just wrote in again, and he's really trying to be our top fan here. He says every brewer he knows quotes Sam Calagione and Jim Cook for that matter.
Yeah,
and he said that Augie Carden is a disciple of Sam Calagione.
I've actually heard Augie refer to Sam as one of his heroes.
Right.
So, and I really think that bashing Dogfish Head is just sheer ignorance, absolute ignorance. Now, I'm going to come clean to begin with. There's a few places where there was a time where with Dogfish Head, I'd gotten tired with this string of beers that they had. They were all kind of the same beer, but just done a slightly different way. He was using the same base, and I fell off of them for a little bit. And I get that, and I was talking to Meathead earlier, Jason, and we were talking about how there are certain breweries where you've gone through their whole catalog. So when you see them on the shelf, you just go past them. We were talking about not just Dogfish Head, but also Stone. And you're like, when's the last time I bought a Stone beer? And this is one of the greatest breweries in the country. It's been a long time since I've had a Stone beer. There's a few breweries along those lines, and then you get those people that bash Sam Adams. And to John's point earlier, a lot of this on the East Coast does not happen without Jim Cook doing what he did. The craft beer revolution, it took place. It started on both coasts. On the East Coast, it was Sam Adams. On the West Coast, it was Sierra Nevada mostly, but also a little bit of Anchor as well.
Sure, absolutely.
So would that have come across the country to us? Yeah, maybe eventually, but Sam Adams definitely super accelerated it.
We'd be 10 years. I think we'd be a minimum of 10 years behind.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Sam Adams.
Sam Adams, and then and it gets confused. I get confused because you got Sam Adams and Sam Calagione. So we're talking about Dogfish Head.
Right.
So let's stick with
Dogfish Head. Jim is Sam Adams.
When it first happened, I actually photoshopped Sam's face into like the Patriot brewer and I sent it out to one of the beer groups, and I thought that worked.
Sam Calagione Adams.
Yeah, the new Sam Adams.
And I probably said his name wrong, but the other thing that I would always get on Dogfish Head about is they're pretty much responsible for this. And John knows how much I hate the pumpkin beer craze, but pumpkin. It started it, right? It's really what made it huge. And so, but I've forgiven him for that because of some of the other great, phenomenal beers he's put out.
Right.
And we all have our favorites, right?
Which is a good segue. Great segue.
You like that?
Look at that. That was pretty damn good. Look at that.
That's smooth, slick.
That brings us to 33s, folks. Our top threes of the week. Top threes this week are top 3 favorite Dogfish Head beers. Those are our top 3. I'll go first.
You go first.
I'll go first.
You want to do our honorable mention first? So
Why don't we do our honorable mention first? Yes, absolutely. You can do it.
There is a beer that John and I have talked about. We both consider one of the more underrated beers, not just in Dogfish Head's catalog, but maybe in the country through the years.
It's an underrated style too, in general.
And an underrated style because it's a hoppy brown. Mm-hmm. And that would be India Brown Ale. Yeah.
Indian Brown is it's a 7.2% brown ale, so it's a little higher ABV brown ale, but it's hoppy and it's roasty. It's like a cross between a Scotch ale, a brown ale, and an IPA.
Yeah,
all in one bottle.
It's a beautiful beer. So
it's really good. But that's our special mention. But my top 3 are in. I'll give them in order.
Which John rarely does.
I rarely do that. Yes, except 2 weeks ago. Obviously, my one was that. But anyway, in third place, if you will, Midas Touch. It's a 9%. They call it a historical beer, brewed with ingredients found 2,400 years ago or 1,200 years ago or something.
In pottery, what they
there's a book. Pat McGovern is a scientist. He's what they call I forget it, a beverage archaeologist. What they actually do is he's an archaeologist. They go to sites, they dig up And anytime they have clay pottery or anything like that, they actually do like mass spectrometry on it, and they can basically kind of figure out what some of the like compounds were that were oiled in whatever that vessel is.
Sure.
And they kind of try to reverse engineer what the beverage is. And he's worked with Sam Calgione. And there is a book called Drinking the Past by Pat McGovern, and it goes through a lot of the stories behind a lot of the ancient ale series by Dogfish, and it's really cool.
Yeah, he's a Penn professor, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's with Penn. And it's just amazing what they've done, because he knows what the ingredients were. He doesn't know the ratios. He doesn't know the quantity of any of the ingredients. So he throws that over to Sam. Sam's got to recreate the recipe just from there.
Right.
And what is this? Dogfish Head. It's Chateau Jiahu. Sati.
Obviously the Midas Touch.
Right. Theobroma.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one we're missing.
There's one more. We're forgetting it, but
we're missing one. Chateau Jiahu is China. Theobroma is Mexico, the Incan Empire.
Right.
Midas Touch was Crete.
I want to say there's an Egyptian one for some reason.
The Egyptian one was just him putting out petri dishes and collecting.
No, he did that. Sorry, he did it. It was at the brewery only.
Right.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. And then there's
and distributed it.
There was one that was from Turkey, was there not?
We'll have to research it and get and bring it back up.
There's one more.
There's one. What is it? Etrusca or something? There was one like
Etrusca. Etrusca. That was the Roman one. Yeah.
There you go.
It is.
And there it is. Well, Midas Touch is definitely my number 3. It's like it's kind of dials in somewhere between a beer, a mead, and a wine. It's dry and sweet at the same time. It's really, really good. If you never had it, get it.
If it was darker, it'd be a Braggett, right?
Exactly.
It does have a good amount of actual grape must in it.
Absolutely.
No, it's one of the interesting things just through Pat McGovern's research is the fact that we tend to think of things as wine, as beer, or mead. Through ancient history, there was actually like a lot of people were throwing a lot of different fermentables in a lot of different beverages
because they wanted to get drunk.
It was just like, yeah, we don't know really what works the best, so we'll just throw it all in there and we'll know it'll make alcohol. So they were throwing, honey, grapes, malt, all kinds of stuff all together to make tons of different beverages. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, we spent a lot of time on your number 3. What's your number 2 going to give us?
I'll just rattle off my number 2 and my number 1 quicker. My number 2 is Raison d'Être. It's an 8% Belgian strong dark. It's so
with extra raisins and
beet sugar.
I think it should be called Raisin d'Extra.
Well, there's one Raisin d'Extra.
Yes, there was. That's right. They doubled it up.
They doubled it up. So, and then my number 1 is Burton Batten. It's a 10%. It's a blend of an English old ale and an Imperial IPA. They actually brew both, and
so they basically make it a barley wine out of it.
More or less,
like an oaked barley wine.
An oaked barley wine, basically.
A barley wine cuvee.
But it's a cuvee, yeah, because they brew the old ale and they brew the IPA and they oak age them and then they blend them. So it's a kind of, yeah, exactly. So, but it's a crazy good beer. Anyway, Dave, what are yours?
Mine are in no particular order. It's really hard to put them in order because he's got such a different vein for all of his beers. So there's so many different styles. But I've got to go with one of the first beers of here. To stick with the article of what was the last beer that wowed you, I'm going to go with one of the first beers that wowed me. And one of them was
your phone too. So.
Was Palo Santo Moran. And what I loved about Palo Santo Moran was that it was the first beer that ever really, really threw a mommy for me, right? Because it's aged in those Palo Santo barrels, which the Argentinian, Chilean wines, they age them and they give that umami flavor. So that was so different for me. So that one really did it. Number 2.
Can I cut in for a sec?
Yeah.
So when you go to Dogfish Head in Milton, Delaware, the coolest part of the tour, hands down, is the big wooden vat that they age the Palo Santo Moran in.
The Palo Santo vat, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's literally, it's like a barrel, for lack of a better way to explain it, that's about 30 feet tall and about a diameter about 60 feet.
Jeez.
It's crazy.
Literally,
I've seen it. It's crazy.
Dump.
I want to go swimming in it.
Sit and age in it. Now, people here in New Jersey may know Spellbound makes a Palo Santo porter. Palo Santo is an amazing wood. It's completely different from oak or something like that. First of all, it's extraordinarily dense. Sam actually tells a story about, he went and tried to cut one of these trees down because he wanted to make this big barrel. He basically took an axe and he hit it and it knocked the axe head off. And a cop walked over and said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I was trying to chop this tree down." And he said the cop took out his gun and shot it and the bullet ricocheted off of the tree.
Oh, jeez.
So they literally, to make this giant vat, they basically had to get diamond encrusted like saw blades. And they made this giant vat, and it's crazy. Palo Santo adds this really like peppery, spicy note that's just fantastic.
Right.
And it's also but it's funny because unlike oak, where oak flavor, you want the beer to move in and out of the wood like a lot to really suck out flavor. The Palo Santo is so potent is they put it in and you have to only age it for like a week and then you take it out.
A week, wow.
And the funny thing is, like, I think they said once a year they get in there with belt sanders and just sand the inside of it so there's fresh Palo Santo.
So eventually they're going to wear the whole thing down.
Like the beer doesn't soak deep into the wood like it does with an oak barrel or anything like that. It's such a cool ingredient.
Well, the number two, like I said, it's no specific order here. Everyone talks about 120 minute. Everyone talks about Worldwide Stout. Sure. And everyone, I think, just loves these because they're these 18% beers. And to me, unless you do something to them, they're almost undrinkable for me, right? My Worldwide Stout, my favorite time I ever had it, they ran into espresso beans in the Randall at Cloverleaf, and that was fantastic. Sure. Straight out of the bottle, I don't care how long you age it. It's just too sweet for me. But they make another 18%er that most people forget about, and I love this beer, is Fort. You got that raspberry ale, 18% at raspberry ale. Love that one. And this is in order because my number one favorite Dogfish Head beer ever is Squall. Bottle aged 90 minute. I mean, that is a beautiful beer.
That's like a pretty good beer.
It's like when Weyerbacher does Simcoe, right? And then they do Simcoe with the cork and cage. It's a different beer, right? Because it's been bottle conditioned, and bottle conditioning does something. It's amazing.
Belgian technique.
Yeah, Belgian technique. Yeah. So let's go over to Mr. Belgian. What are your
three?
Quickly, what are your three, Matt?
All right.
John and I have sucked. We sucked so much out of this segment already.
I'm going to be very, very specific. So the first one is cheating. Because the first one isn't technically a beer they released, but it's a Heaven and Hell.
Okay.
And if you don't know what a Heaven and Hell is, that's when you make a black and tan with the Worldwide and the 120 minute.
Sure. Oh, wow.
And you're taking like an 18% beer and a 22% beer and mixing it to make like a 20% black and tan. But I think that in many ways, those two beers, when you blend them, they kind of cover up each individual beer's faults. So it's actually it's kind of like the craziest, ridiculous black IPA that you've ever had, in the nicest way, like 20%.
I may have to try that.
Yeah, so that's it's called a Heaven and Hell. Two is honestly always one of my favorite beers is the Palo Santo Marron, and I particularly like aging mine over a year.
You get it, hold on to it for a year, and then drink it.
In my cellar, I will let them sit, and again, I think even more of that Palo Santo comes out after a year, and it's just really a beautiful beer.
It is a beautiful beer.
It's a good beer for wine lovers too, right?
And then, obviously, I'm going to pick a Belgian style beer.
Of course you are.
It's the Raison de Extra, which is
the extra. You went up there.
Big 16% or 17% version of
17,
and again, I like those aged out a little bit. I like them after about a year to a year and a half.
And that beer had one of their best graphics too, right?
Yeah. I mean, so the coolest part about that is that that beer naturally is going to have a lot of dark fruit notes, but they literally put raisins in it. So it's like taking that dark fruit note and just turning it up to 11. It's
Sure.
awesome.
Well, like I said to John, it's like you've got a beer that throws raisin. So what do? You add more raisin.
Dial it up with more raisins.
It's like, oh, it has some raisin. Let's just back up the truck and we'll just pour so many raisins into it. And like that's one of the things I do love Sam for, is the fact that he's just like, all right, ours go up to 11. That's brewing philosophy is just keep adding stuff until it's ridiculous, and then add some more, and then we'll have a beer. And I love that. But that beer, with a proper amount of age on it. Again, I mean, it's basically like a quad at that point. So any Belgian quad, I think. I mean, I'll tell you what, my favorite beer in the world is St. Bernardus 12, aged 3 years.
That's a fantastic beer.
Yeah,
I have like 5 of them in my cellar, and when I drink one that's over 3 years old, I go out to like the first liquor store I see, pull it right off the shelf, and bring it back, and I put it in the back and rotate the other ones forward.
There you go.
And I always have one that's kind of appropriately aged.
There you go.
The amount of just dark fruit and leather and all those deeper flavors from just a little bit of oxidation that come out in the quad are just unbelievable.
It's so good. It's hard to describe, but if you've never had it, do it. Go buy. I mean, if you can get St. Bernardus 12, get it. But quad,
what a lot of people
sit on it for a while, and then don't drink it. Don't drink it fresh. Sit on it for a while. And if you're lucky enough,
not literally.
Not literally. If you're lucky enough to have a bottle shop that has aged stuff or just a lot of old bottles, you hit the ballpark. You thought you walked into somewhere that might not work.
That's the thing. Is a lot of times those bottles sit on shelves too. So
absolutely.
You walk in there and you're like, oh man, this one's from 2017. You're like, score. I can drink.
Cable beverages, right?
Cable beverage up in Bardonia, New York. Absolutely. You can find bottles from 08 and 09 in there.
You can find bottles from the Civil War in there, I think.
Well, again, and slaughtering the pronunciation, but what is it? Westletteren,
West
Letteren, yeah.
West Letteren.
The little one of the Trappist monasteries.
Sure.
In Belgium, which is in many circles is considered, if not the best, one of the best beers in the world, blah, blah, blah. St. Bernardus contract brewed for them for years. St. Bernardus 12 is the same recipe as Westy 12.
There's
and I've done blind taste tests of it, and we've had 55, people pick St. Bernardus over Westy 12.
I have done it. I've tasted West Letteren and St. Bernardus and chose St. Bernardus.
Westies is all about the exclusivity.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Don't
get me wrong. Westie's a very good beer.
It's a great beer.
Crap on the beer, but it's also a little rough around the edges, and I mean to some people that's the appeal. The St. Bernardus is just a little smoother, and that's where I like it to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm feeling a little bad that we slighted National Pastry Day and honored Lager Day, so I'm actually going to go. I'm wearing a Bolero shirt.
There we go.
So I've got to open a pastry stout. So you guys know this one.
I know it pretty well.
Yeah, I know you know it pretty well. And I've got a damn good glass to go with it, and we all know who that is on the glass. Right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I will say that we did brew.
It's Jeff Bridges.
No, it's not. Yeah, Jeff Bridges' alter ego.
Bergen County was brewed at Cypress at one point. So
there you go.
I've heard stories of this.
We know a little bit about that beer.
You know it well.
I love Bob and Scott, and
who doesn't?
Super, super, super excited that when they open their own place, they get to directly take care of all their own quality control, and they don't have beer being brewed at 5 different breweries and things like that. So, everything that I've had out of the new brewery, I think has been really, really good. So, cheers to them. They've been killing it, and good luck to them.
Cheers to them, absolutely. And cheers to you, Matt, for coming on today with us.
Oh, cheers.
We appreciate you spending an hour with us, and hopefully we can do it again, and we definitely want to do it again. In fact, bring
COVID.
COVID. There you go.
All over.
Bring Sergio on with you once. Bring Charlie on with you once. Come on again yourself. And we got
to bring Sergio on the show and talk about his rabbits.
Absolutely, definitely. All right, folks.
That's some PTSD there.
That'll wrap up the show for today. We want to thank everybody for watching, and for those of you listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening to us. Don't forget to visit our website, www.lagerroom.com. That's LAGERROOM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of your social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Lager Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 5:30. For those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you'll never miss a show.
And also get to Milavino and buy that mead.
Absolutely. Get your tails up to Milavino in Vauxhall and get some of that mead while they have it.
I think we got about 150 bottles left, so
hurry.
It's not going to hang around too long. So, all right. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Matt, for coming on with us. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. We will definitely see you again, and we will talk to everybody soon. Have a great weekend, guys. Take care. Cheers.
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 Cheers.